Hello, everyone. This is the Free American Press with Alexander Horat. And today I'm going to be speaking with my mother, Maria Horat, and we're both in real estate. We're both real estate professionals here in Tuolumne County in California. And today we're going to be talking about an essential aspect of real estate that's very important to us, and that is property rights. So would you like to head us off in that?
Thank you, Alex. Yes. So the impact of the climate agenda, sustainable goals on property rights cannot be underestimated. This is the most important topic of our day. And we have seen that during the last few years, the implementation of sustainable development goals through climate action plans all over the world. We've seen it in our county. They passed the climate action plan last year. We hear of this term sustainable development, which is often used as is the buzzword or the buzz term that refers to the climate agenda. Specifically, it refers to an initiative by the United Nations called Sustainable Agenda 21. And it is basically a comprehensive statement of a political ideology that is being infused into every level of government worldwide. The creators of Agenda 21 have said that these goals will have an impact on every aspect of our lives, which are basically, they call it the 3 E's: equity, economy, and environment. So in addition, local governments and the city, at the city and county levels, are given these preconceived plans for approval through the city or county planners, through these manipulative visioning sessions, and also the use of coercion by environmental groups and acquiring grants with strings attached to deeper settled roots in every community for these sustainable goals through climate action plans. Today, I want to let's focus our attention on the land use programs that are being implemented worldwide, and we're definitely seeing it here in the state of California where we're at. For that, I first want to turn my attention to where this is coming from. And I am going to share my screen. Give me one quick second.
Yeah, this seems like a very odd thing that they're having all this land planning basically with these climate plans. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, so we see this link from the United Nations and the rule of law, because they have the rule of law, having to do with land, property, and environment. So they're saying improved security of tenure for land and property can make a critical contribution to ensuring social and economic progress in rural and urban settings, supporting poverty reduction and furthering gender equality. Again, this word equality, and peace and security. Land tenure, which means getting the land, the rights to land, including a range of tenure types appropriate to local conditions and needs. So they're going to determine how this tenure is going to be taking place, such as community property rights, which is basically another term for socialism or communism, and the protection of resources commons. Basically, people are not going to have access to their own resources. Create certainty about what can be done with land or property and its use, and can increase economic opportunities and benefits through investment. So I want to now, let's turn our attention to, give me one second.
well, I think we're definitely already starting to see that in a lot of areas in the United
Yes,
States. They give you like a property tax cut and stuff like that, or they give
right.
you money if you don't use your land at all for, say, production of food and other necessary resources for human life. And it seems odd that the government wants to dictate that, basically wanting to keep lands wilderness. And, we see people like Bill Gates buying a whole bunch of land, like these very rich people who are very involved in this whole United Nations thing. And at the same time, they're wanting to get people are getting more poor. They have to go to the city to find work and have a smaller, like little apartment type thing. And it just seems like they're trying to control land. And that seems like the main objective of most governments, unfortunately,
And
over
this
the
is yeah, this is a very topic program video that we're making because it's the most, like I say, it's the most important topic of our time, and that's why I want us to be able to reach the biggest audience. That's why we have the captions in Spanish, because I seen that there is not a whole lot of information in regards to these in the news outlets in English or Spanish, but it seems like it's even worse in Spanish. So I want to just show you a couple of things. So the land use element of sustainable development calls for the implementation of 2 action plans designed to erode and eventually abolish private property. Okay, so
or
these are the Wildlands Network and Smart Growth. So the Wildlands Network is a plan to eliminate human presence on at least 50% of the American landscape and to heavily control human activity on most of the rest of American land. This same plan is taking place all around the world. I want to point out to this magazine. It's called the Range magazine. And I always have a little hard time
it
trying.
just it seems very
Yeah,
odd, like yeah, I don't think you have it up yet, but it seems like it's very odd though because the government is wanting more control, watching what you do. Okay, now we see it.
yeah.
Um,
No, these are the different ones. Give me one quick second.
yeah, it seems like basically, they're wanting to create an outdoor prison when you look at all this stuff because they want to control people even more. They want to get everybody in a small little area. And if you look at ancient Chinese history, for instance, we saw that their first emperor moved all his nobles into his capital city and took away a lot of their rights and stuff because he wanted to have more control, power, and basically to control the Empire of China until his death. So it's very odd that they're going to do all this stuff basically, to watch people, to get people out of the rural areas. Okay, so we do see that now.
So this
Um,
Range magazine focuses on everything that affects the land and the rural areas and the farms. And this was an interview that took place a while back. I'm just going to read a little bit about what he says. By one account, at least, he said to have in such a setting in Arizona in the early 1980s, when David Foreman expressed his wildlands vision for emphasis spinning into the air as a freshly empty tequila bottle that witnesses swear was never heard to fall back on earth. So basically it is a tale no less believable than the relentless project Foreman set in motion that is spinning still on the political horizon. More apparent and even more incredible than any campfire yarn, it would revert to as much as 50% of the continental United States to a pre-Columbian condition, absent of roads and towns dominated in the realm by predators such as grizzly bears and wolves that were free to roam in wide corridors from the Yukon to the Yucatan. What a few human beings who might find their way into the depth would be intruders and the least capable of all species surviving in the savage preserve. So Foreman was the one that brought it up, and then this guy, his last name, Reed Knows, discusses the Wildlands Project. And basically, what he's saying is that his wildlands network designs in the West focus on the public lands for areas of identified high conservation value within these lands. That is recommended increased protection, wildland status or equivalent. Those relatively few private lands identified are core areas are lands belonging to the Nature Conservancy Land Trust, conservation-minded ranchers and other folks who voluntarily manage their lands for conservation. So we're going to talk about the Land Trust, which is one of the land programs that they have now. So I want to bring our attention now to the next information that I have, because there is a man that actually put a map together, a really good map together. His name, I'm gonna bring it here because I think we need to listen for a few seconds to his video, and it was right minute 47 of what he talks about here.
Yeah, that seems crazy that they want to get more land and do all this when the federal government already owns a huge amount of the United States.
Yeah, exactly. And how that's going to basically just affect everyone, because all they want to do is move everybody into the smart cities, into the areas away from the wildlands. And we see that there is a huge there's just a huge portion of it that they're saying is a part of the wildland reservoir, the wildlands networks that they want us to stay out of. So hang on one second. So I don't want to play the commercials here either.
Right, we don't want to have everybody watch all these advertisements, you know.
Right. So I'm just going to bring our attention to this link here. Okay. So I think we have shown this before in some of our conversations that we had.
Yes.
So this is basically the Wildlands Network created. This was put together, prepared by Dr. Michael Kaufman from Environmental Perspectives. And it's a plan, like I said, and this was from the Range magazine by Reed Noss, who made this statement, quote, 50% of American landscape at least plan to eliminate human presence on at least 50% of the American landscape and to heavily control human activity on most of the rest of the American land. Examples of the piece-by-piece implementation of the Wildlands Network include road closures, the policy of breaching dams, and the adoption of United Nations World Heritage Sites. So we see here on this map how these red areas are the core reserves and corridors, and then this yellow area is the buffer zone, and then these little tiny little green areas here are the normal use. So we see just these little tiny areas are for normal use. So
it just seems like a huge amount of land they want to control, they want to take over, and that's unfortunately historic precedent has been shown. You know, we saw, you know, in the Kingdom of France, for instance, the nobles controlled a huge amount of the land, and they didn't want the peasants hunting on, you know, that little on the land and everything. So it's just kind of the same thing in new bottles.
Exactly. So they talk about these land trusts or conservation easement areas. And here's just a little definition by the California Council of Land Trusts of what that means. That landowners who want to protect their land well into the future can enter into a conservation easement with a land trust, government agency, tribe, or other qualified organization. And conservation easements offer effective and flexible protection and are one of the most frequently used tools for conserving private land. In other words, if you want to enjoy certain maybe tax exemptions, or your view is that you want to keep the land that you own forever to be an area of conservation where nobody can develop, you can make that specify that in your easement. And what that means is that once that property gets sold or transferred, no one is going to be in perpetuity. No one will be able to develop that land.
Right. It's like kind of like owning the mineral rights to your property or the water rights. It's like then it makes that land useless forever because you're going to have these people enforcing that. And if they get a lot of these properties under this conservation thing somehow, then that's going to cause a lot of trouble here in the United States, where, you know, there are already a lot of people don't even own their own house anymore. A lot of people are having trouble renting out these, you know, expensive properties. At least if you own your own property, you can have the ability to live on it and only pay property taxes, which are a lot less than how much it costs to rent.
Oh, that's changing too, right? With the rise of interest rates and the unpredictable rise of homeowners insurance, which is a whole nother issue. Areas that are in the high fire hazard zone here in California, which is basically the whole state, have to pay astronomical amounts. And we know that the main players are no longer writing new policies in our state, but that's also happening across the nation, not just here in California. So here's what's happening. This is our local newspaper in Tuolumne County. And for those who are not aware where Tuolumne County is in the Sierra foothills. I call it ground zero for all these plants that are happening. And it's only about 2.5 hours away from the San Francisco Bay Area. So here's from the Union Democrat, says trust announces funding opportunities to assist with private land conservation. This just came out this month, and it's basically to what we were talking about these land easements. The Motherlode Land Trust recently received a grant to provide outreach and education to landowners in our service area who are interested in the financial benefits of conserving their land. Farmers and ranchers and those who purchase land for protection are the true conservationists, the organization stated in a news release. So he explains here, a conservation easement is a voluntary yet legally binding agreement between the land trust and the landowner that typically restricts subdivision and development or other uses that could affect the agricultural viability or natural resources of a property in perpetuity. That means it's
Yeah, so it's like not just for development of houses. They don't even want you to grow any food on it for people. And we're already having really high grocery bills right now. So we really need to increase food production so people can actually live and have some expendable income. So it's not just for like building cities and houses, it's for cutting down, for
yeah.
farming.
Some of these land conservation agreements in certain areas might be to keep a farm, but a lot of them, I would say most of them are going to be so you can do nothing with that land. And they always have these, they want to protect a certain type of owl. It always comes down, if you actually take your time to research in some of these forestry organizations and the state forestry department, there's always an owl that they want to protect for some reason. It's an owl versus owl type of thing that's going on, and they want to get people out of where the areas where this owl is. It's strange.
Well, that's a great scapegoat because the federal government already owns there's already national parks like Yosemite. There's a huge amount of land. What they are wanting to do is to get people out of the areas that are adjacent to these big parks to make these parks even bigger so the federal government has more control over the land in the United States than it already does. And it's just crazy. And they use this saving the spotted owl as a scapegoat, basically as the reason why we need to get everybody out of these areas. We need to all shove them into, this big mega city, these smart cities, like the one they're building in Solano County. For instance, they're trying to build a new big mega smart city where they're going to have all these cameras, they're just going to be watching you all the time. And the problem with that they're having is they feel they can't police people in rural areas as well as in, a big concentrated spot. So that's all that this is about, is control. But this seems really important, understanding the wildland urban interface.
Yeah, so this is, you can look it up, it's the USDA talking about this. It's not a guy who put some information together. This is coming right from a government website. So what that means, so let's just take a quick look. So the wildland urban interface, WUI, is the area where structures and other human development intermingle with wildland vegetation, or where housing is in the vicinity of large areas of wildland vegetation. So we're going to look at an interactive map here in a minute, but they're saying population is growing around these areas, and therefore, for example, like in California, wildfires are increasing because of what man is doing to the land and the proximity with the land. They're saying in 2020, 9.4% of the land area of the contiguous United States was in the WUI, but that land was home to more than 44 million homes. So the goal is to limit building, any development, and to get us out of these areas. Let's take a look at this interactive map. I really found this interesting. So we can even look at it county level WUI trends. So here in California, so if we look at, for example, Tuolumne County, let me see if I'm clicking. This is Mariposa County, which is 84% of housing units in Mariposa County were in the WUI.
And WI just means that they're in a kind of a rural area.
Yeah, it means that they're in the wild and urban interface. They're saying the areas that they don't want us to be in. Remember that map that I pull up? That
yeah. So that's
Michael Hoffman. Actually, this map is very similar. Very similar. He did a whole research on all the plans, what they want, where they want us to be out of. And these maps are actually complement the information that he put out. Here's Tuolumne County. 96% of housing units in Tuolumne County, California, were in the WUI, meaning in the wild and urban interface in 2020. What does that mean?
That means that they want us out of that area.
Right.
So, oh, there's a high risk, basically.
There's high risk, and that's why it's becoming increasingly unaffordable to remain in those areas. They're definitely trying.
High insurance costs and everything. It's all part of basically, they're not gonna get you out with a gun or something. They're gonna tax you to death, and basically where you can't, with the insurance and everything.
Yeah, insurance. And of course, another way that they're really, really working hard at to fight the so-called climate change, another way that they're really doing in order to help is this whole prescribed burning. They're doing that. That's one of their ways to fight climate change. And as you know, in Tuolumne County, it's been unbearable for the last few months with all the prescribed burning. People can't breathe.
Yeah, it's not even like they're not even like natural fires. They're burning all this, the forest, and just
Yes.
yeah.
They're saying climate change is limiting their use, but they're using the controlled burns to help prevent wildfires, which is polluting the environment and causing a lot of distress and health issues, especially among the elderly. We have just recently they put out, Tuolumne County put out a statement saying that people needed to remain indoors so that they wouldn't be suffering as much from all the prescribed burning, right? So they want us to be in our houses, just like COVID, the same thing here. So here, California State Parks announces a plan to burn 1,300 acres in Calaveras big trees. So they're making it really unpleasant to remain in our counties in these areas. They want to make sure that it's unpleasant, it's unaffordable. So those are some of I see it as a way to get us out of those areas.
Yeah, I think right.
And what about, as far as the state of California is concerned, the environmental regulations that they have are more lax or exempt for subsidized low-income housing. This is the other thing. While the average home builder carries all the burden to meet environmental regulations to build new homes.
Right.
They don't want the average person to build, but if there is any building to happen, if there was any building to happen in our county, in these areas, in the wildlands network areas, would be whatever they deem is necessary for affordable housing.
Like they make it easier to build these little coffin apartments, which are great for the landlord because they're getting a lot of money and there's a lot less maintenance, but they don't want people having single family houses building those in California. It's really scary that they're just on this route right now.
Yeah, so we have this article by the Housing and Community Development. This is from this month. California to support the acceleration of affordable housing and climate-friendly infrastructure in tribal and rural communities. So I contacted one of our local representatives and I received a response in regards to this. And the response was that the Board of Forestry is making it impossible for new development of any kind, even if it's affordable housing, to happen in our county, in Tuolumne County, which is within the wildlands network. However, like right now, I'm right here in the Del Norte County, up in Northern California, and they, in certain areas, they are allowing the building of, but it has to be low income housing. And they are exempt from a lot of these environmental regulations. So don't ask me why. They're building in Crescent City, they're building 164 new units for low income housing. It's going to be a building for low income housing. And these new housing, they won't have to go through all the steps that the average builder will go through just to build, like anybody who wants to build this kind of housing couldn't build it unless they're going to be low income housing and they're getting subsidized.
It seems like they're giving certain groups more advantages.
Right.
For
Well,
people.
yeah, if you are in with the government, what they want you to do, if you take their grant money and all of that, then you're okay. But if you're
And like that's not the reason why the law was created. The law was created for the people. Like no one should be above the law or get special benefits.
Yeah, so you're telling me that low income housing is less, has a lesser impact to the environment than just a regular building. I don't understand that. So here at Tuolumne County receiving $3 million from this grant. Is the over 54 million in REAP 2.0 grants were awarded. And where is that money going to go through for? It's going to be used for the expansion of the Jamestown Sanitary District sewer system and wastewater treatment facilities and the construction of the Valley Vista water storage tank, which will support future housing development in several of the county's large and underdeveloped parcels. So that remains to be seen, because I did hear from somebody at our local government, and I was told that they're not really allowing the Board of Forestry, they're not allowing new building in the county for this type. So we'll see what happens, moving forward. But we've seen these programs taking place in California and all throughout the United States. There is, I just wanted to also talk about this topic that's now we're starting to see quite a bit, is the issue of carbon sequestration through eminent domain.
Right.
The first thing is that they're cutting trees. This sounds like insanity, but they're cutting trees and they're burying the trees. It's one of the new things that Bill Gates is really funding. There is a company called Kodama Systems, and they actually just started out of Sonora. They're in Sonora, and they're getting ready to do some projects of this kind in the Stanislaus Forest. We contacted, and some other people contacted our local representatives to see if they knew anything about it. And they didn't have any knowledge. Of course, once these grants are given, the National Forest or CAL FIRE, they get into these partnerships with the NGOs, right? And these NGOs subcontract these type of companies to do this work. So they're saying cutting trees and burying them is good for the environment.
Right. So what they're going to use with that is, the whole process of eminent domain is basically the government can take your land if it's in the best benefit of all the other people in your community. Like it's okay to take somebody's land, even if you don't want to sell it for whatever the government wants to pay you for it to build, say, a highway or a road. But now what they're going to do is go one step further and say, oh, we're going to take your land through eminent domain because this is an area that, is not supposed to be developed. It's not supposed to be this. So that's kind of like their ace in the hole type thing. And I think that's a very scary precedent, this whole eminent domain and the Kodama systems, cutting down trees and burying them. That just doesn't make any sense.
No, the cutting trees and burying them doesn't make any sense. Also, Bill Gates has come out and said that planting trees doesn't make any sense either, planting new trees. So we go from one insanity, so that's one insanity, to the next, which is U.S. carbon pipeline proposals trigger backlash over potential land seizures. And this is happening in Iowa, where a flurry of proposed carbon pipelines in the U.S. Midwest has triggered a battle over whether companies behind their projects should be allowed to seize land from unwilling property owners to secure a route. Hundreds of Iowa landowners, more than a dozen state counties, and a handful of lawmakers are seeking to limit the use of eminent domain law by the projects, arguing property rights and other concerns outweigh the potential benefits of the pipelines to local industry and the climate. The issue has come to the forefront as the companies behind the project seek to negotiate voluntary easements with landowners that will give them the legal right to dig, install, and maintain the lines, which will transport carbon capture and biofuel processing plants for injection underground. So these pipelines are to transport carbon, which, okay, how do you do that? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. If the landowners refuse these easements, the companies will need to turn to eminent domain to gain access to the land. So where private companies are turning to eminent domain, I mean, that you can see here the relationship and why the NGOs have been given, the non-governmental organizations have been given so much power. U.S. eminent domain allows private companies to take over property if the project is deemed in the public interest and landowners are compensated. It has been used often to ensure energy companies can complete projects like pipelines and transmission lines that move oil, gas, and power to consumers. But the law has not yet been applied to carbon pipelines, which are primarily regulated and cited by states rather than federal government. So if this happens, if this ends up in the Supreme Court and they end up losing their property rights to these new carbon pipelines, that's going to set a precedent for the rest of the United States.
And these carbon pipelines are basically like pipelines.
Yeah, like what you would think of pipelines, but they're going to just dig it in the ground, these people's land, to capture carbon, which, and that they're going to use so-called, for fuel, but it doesn't make any sense at all.
It seems like a good way for them to secure a large amount of land for free or for a very cheaper rate.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And we see here that they pass is AB 1757, natural and working lands to advance California's climate goals, which requires the Natural Resources Agency to determine on before January 1st, 2024, an ambiguous range of target of natural carbon sequestration. So when they say carbon sequestration, you can think of cutting trees and burying them. Okay, that's one way. Or putting pipelines through the ground to capture carbon dioxide, capture carbon. And for nature-based climate solutions that reduce greenhouse emissions. So the status is approved in both houses as of August 31st, and it was signed on September 26th. So we're going to start seeing these carbon sequestration goals trying to get implemented across private lands and farms and rural areas. So we definitely need to keep an eye on that as well. And then, of course, we have this whole, once they get us out of this wildlands area, the next thing is that the goal is the smart growth. The goal that people are barred from rural land through all the different devices that we just outlined. and there will be a concentration of human activity in the urban areas. And through smart growth, the infrastructure is created for a post-private property era in which human action is subject to centralized government control.
Right. So that means that they own everything, that they have complete power. And that's what, bad people like, is having complete power over people, where they don't own anything, where they don't have any rights, and they're just treated as cattle, basically.
Exactly. Exactly. So they're trying to establish all of these goals. They call it the 15-minute cities, urbanism. And urbanism is a planning and development approach based on the principles of how cities and towns had been built for the last several centuries. So they want to have the walkable blocks and streets, housing and shopping in close proximity, and accessible public spaces. You have brought up a really good example. If you want to talk about it, Alex, again, it was in Solano County. I think you just talked about it just a little bit ago.
Oh yeah, and in Solano County, basically there's a large group of billionaires from Silicon Valley who are buying up all the land in an area pretty close to Fairfield, because they're willing to build a new big city, like a smart city with technology and all this stuff. And they're trying to say it's how it's so good and so great. But at the same time, they're suing farmers right now. They're trying to bully certain farmers into selling their land when they don't want to, or they're not getting the price that they want. So right now, these private companies, these private people are trying to get a land grab, basically to secure a land area 3 times bigger than the city of San Francisco. So it's a huge new city. It's very odd that they're building such a big city. If they get all this approval from, Gavin Newsom and all these other people in the state government, which it seems like they're already starting to, because they donate heavily. Steve Jobs' wife is part of this, funding this to build the city. So she's donated heavily to the Democrat Party over the years. So I'm sure they're going to do their best to accomplish what they spent almost $1 billion on in buying all this land. And the thing that's funny is, why are you building this new city in the Bay Area, which can potentially house millions of people, when California's population is in a huge decline? Like, what is the reason for that? Is this got to be the place, this new built city, got to be the new place where they're going to move everybody from the rural areas of California into this new city? Like, is that their goal, to try to get people to go in, and then they're going to have all this smart technology to track everything you do? So advertisers can track everything you do and have all these cameras. And it's just going to be,
Yeah,
seems very.
absolutely. And here is a list. This website outlines all the smart cities right now. Like here in the United States, you can go and take a look at all the other places. Latin America, all these cities are right now smart cities. Europe, Africa, you can look around. And what's really interesting, and what you should keep an eye on, is who's funding, who are the partners, who's making, helping create. We know it's coming down from the UN and the World Economic Forum, but they need corporations to partner with them to make this happen. So, and organizations, or they call NGOs. So, keep an eye on who are behind these plans.
Very big corporations like IKEA, Google.
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem a little funny? Like, they're gonna have these corporations say, oh, they're gonna be helping people, right? They're selling them, a bill of goods, basically. Like, basically are giving them, oh, the Clinton Foundation, all these people so much power. The World Bank is just to concentrate power more, so they have control of over more stuff. If you'd like to go back and show the people these different cities, so basically
Yeah.
these cities have already agreed to do what they're told by these large corporations and these people. So
Yeah.
basically it seems like a lot of the biggest cities right now, like Washington.
The cities where nobody wants to live right now because we know what's taking place. Right, San Francisco, for example, we know how bad it is there. The violence and crime, and how commercial buildings are losing like 50% of their value, and because now these mortgages are coming due and they can't afford to pay them back. So they're going to be using these commercial buildings for what?
Oh, yes, that's another thing. They're got to retool a lot of these commercial buildings and make them into residential buildings, you know. But
Yeah.
then, like, where's all the jobs? Pretty much, like, you're gonna have all these residential housing, but then you don't have any commercial for people to work. So
And
it's
these perpetual wars that were engaged is not going to help the environment one bit. Is, part of a business proposition that the bankers have, to reset, the way I view it, um, for the Great Reset, and for the bankers to be able to implement the CBDC and the universal income. So they want us in these cities, they want us out of the wildlands, the rural areas, and they want to be able to keep us controlled through these systems. And we need to understand what's taking place, and we need to do something about it at the local level. That's where we're going to have the most impact.
I definitely agree. I think everyone needs to realize that these climate initiatives and stuff, unfortunately, the people who are funding them are big, large mega corporations and other people like that. You need to look where the money's coming from and who's actually funding it. And if they're cutting down trees and burying them and all this stuff, are they really helping the environment? Is this really going to help the environment, or is this just a scapegoat to basically, you know, take away fundamental rights, fundamental property rights, and to have more control over your life? So they will always be in power forever.
Yep, here we have this website by Kodama Systems, and you can go in there and take a look. They have quite a few different articles about what they're doing. They receive $6.6 million from joint ventures, which is Bill Gates' own. And they also receive $300,000 from Cal Fire.
Uh,
And so you can, take a look and really get informed on what's happening, and do something about it, because a lot of people are so fed up with all of these things. They really don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think it's just time, people, we need to all look into all these things. We need to get government officials are helping this out of office, and we need to make them understand too. If we can't get them out of office and get some good people who are not willing to sell out people's fundamental rights, then I think they need to try to understand, what this all comes from. But the problem is, I think a lot of them do already, and they just don't simply care because they see dollar signs, or they just go with the group, think, oh, the state wants us to do this, and oh, the reason why we need to do this is because we have to get all this money to fund government, and you don't know what you're talking about, right? That's what they try to say. But it doesn't matter if you're getting all this money to fund the government if it's going to lead to our essential destruction, basically, where we lose fundamental property rights, we lose fundamental rights that we've had, like you can do what you want on your own property, or at least have more autonomy, and losing that autonomy to the government or these large mega corporations. It's just a very odd thing that they're implementing all this stuff. And also, what they're doing right now is a lot of consolidation in governments in the county level, state level. They're trying to consolidate government, make it more powerful. They want less little separate things because they want to control everything. So the people who are for this are real control freaks, and they just want people to, they don't want the little guy to have any say in anything.
Yeah, because part of it is that they are restructuring governance. right? They are doing that, going through that process, which unfortunately, the elective representatives are having very little say in what's happening, because they have given so much power to these so-called non-profit environmental organizations, that they have no choice than just for example, if you look at the climate action plan that was just passed last year, I think
In
it's
Tuolumne County.
in Tuolumne County. The first measure was basically giving rights to giving the go ahead to environmental organization to do what they needed to do to help with carbon sequestration, or with carbon storage rather, in the forest. And so they give them the okay, and then God knows what they do once they partner with all these different other organizations and subcontractors like Kodama, what happens from there. So what we need is for people to be involved and to actually research all these different topics. We think of the golden age of Greece, the people were involved with the local government decisions. The only way to be involved is to be informed in what's happening. Here, I just wanted to show you real quick. I think we've seen this before, but I wanted to show it again. The Sierra Business Council proposes restructuring government as part of the Community Economic Resilience Fund. So they're going to have, California has all these different, and every state, they have all these different counties, right? But they want to group the counties by regions, different regions. Like right here, we can see all the regions, right? I think it's like, I don't know, 12 or 13 different regions. And they're saying that they're doing this for economic development, right? For things to improve. But each region is going to be governed by this HRTC council, which is divided by these five different groups.
Right, and they're not elected officials.
They're not elected. The only one is the local government committee, right? Which has, I guess, the one of the supervisors that goes to these meetings and represents the county. But everybody else, you have an equity climate labor committee, you have a business and workforce committee, you have a data planning drafting committee, you have a project committee.
Right, so it's only allowing 3 from each county or city within counties, so you're just allowing people who don't necessarily have a stake in, protecting people's rights in the county making decisions for what they want to do. And it's basically, they want to increase the bureaucracy, make the bureaucracy bigger, and just have the bureaucracy crush the people. And we've seen that time and time again in countries like North Korea, for instance. The bureaucracy is everything. Individual lives don't matter. Is that what we want to see in America? I don't think so.
And then you have all layer upon layers, and it's so hard to look into these things because, and then who wants to take the time, or who has the time to look into this when you have a full-time job and a family, right? They make it so complicated. But you see here, according to Tuolumne County, the SURF Fund was created to build sustainable and resilient regional economies. Okay, this is for the whole state, and I'm pretty sure all the other states in the nation are going through some kind of regionalization initiative, because that's the first step to globalization. And you have, there is a 600 million statewide set aside for this program. I haven't heard anything new. I have to research a little more about what it is, what status is that, but they are saying the high price to be paid is the restructuring of government through something called High Road Transition Collaborative Governance Structure. Okay, and the 3 initiatives here again under High Road are equity, climate, and jobs, right? Equity, environment, and economy. Okay, so the goals here are the goals. Here's your buzzword: sustainability, resilience. That's how you know it's coming down from the UN and the World Economic Forum. And this other term about stakeholders, right? These are the stakeholders. Okay. It's not the voters. Okay. Stakeholders
Exactly.
and the organizations that are partner with the government will have a lot to say, a lot to say in the direction of governance and the projects. They're essential to the success of the project.
It's
So
just the moneyed interests. That's the stakeholders. They don't care about what the little guy says because they just want to take whatever the little person has, you know.
yeah, I see this unfortunately as well. It is a restructuring of state government and a Soviet-style model of councils. In my opinion, stakeholders instead of voters have more weight on what takes place in the region under this plan. So I welcome everyone to start really looking into all these different aspects, because it does not only apply to our property rights, which is an essential right, but it applies to every single right, God-given right that we are given, that and all the rights enshrined in the Constitution that were given by God. So I welcome everyone to start looking into all these different rabbit holes, if you would say, but it's going to take you to once you start connecting the dots at the big scale, then you can see the implementation at a local level, then it really starts making sense of what they're trying to do. And we all need to be aware of what the plan is so that we can influence and be able to help our local representatives understand and provide information, because they're also overwhelmed, I think, with the amount of stuff that they do. And, they also have full-time jobs, some of them. And I feel that we need to be involved in order whatever, even if it's a supervisor that you like or you trust, you can just expect everything to be delegated and you wash your hands and do nothing. It is our job as citizens to look into all these things and keep
I
our
agree. I think everybody everywhere hold your local officials accountable and just try to protect your fundamental property rights. And if you're interested in buying or selling a home in California, you can always write us by email or on Facebook if you're interested in our services. And do you have any more things you'd like to say in this video?
Nothing else. I just wanted to quote this quote by Thomas Jefferson, that the price of freedom or liberty is eternal vigilance, and it's definitely something we all need to be engaged in if we want to have a free society, if we want to have the pursuit of happiness worldwide, not just us here in America, but the whole world. And that's why I wanted these message to get across to everyone. And I wish we could have more translations here, but I know the Spanish population is very large. So, and that's my first language. My second language is English. So I'm happy to share this message, and I hope it's something that people can take and do their own research and not just go with what we're saying here, because everyone can be wrong, and we hope to be wrong, but we have done quite a bit of research and look into these for quite a while now. If you have any comments, that we would love to hear your comments as well.
Yeah, please share this video with your friends, and just like to thank you all for watching this video, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay, what do you think?
It's still recording.
Okay. I'm going to end the meeting here.